Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for behind the scenes of an MBE. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Graciela Leon. I go by Grace if you can't roll your R. I am the program specialist in supplier diversity and responsible sourcing at Liberty Mutual Insurance. As a global company that serves customers with different cultures and backgrounds, Liberty Mutual is committed to actively supporting and engaging an inclusive supply base. As a part of our commitment, we are proud to be a member of Pacesetters Network and the MBE Champion sponsor. We are happy to partner with Pacesetters team this year to create the behind the scenes of an MBE program, and I am especially excited to hear from today's speakers, Chaney and Irene. Chaney is the president and owner of City Sealcoating. He is a business leader who strives to drive business results through an innovative and collaborative approach. He spent 20 years working for the state of Massachusetts in such roles as Senior Director of MassDOT, Registry of Motor Vehicles, Deputy Chief Secretary in the Governor's Office, and as the Chief of Staff at the Essex County Sheriff's Office. After leaving public service, he founded High Rise Graphics Inc. in 2016 with the focus of creating a graphic company to support companies who build brand awareness by producing materials, and I quote, anywhere your brand becomes tangible. In 2017, he had the opportunity to purchase the company City Sealcoating Inc. City Sealcoating Inc. has been servicing the Merrimack Valley for 10 years. But Keith had a vision to expand the company to service all of New England. In the past 6 years, he has increased sales by 300%. City Sealcoating offers a full range of asphalt maintenance services, including seal coating, crack sealing, line stripping, asphalt repairs, and paving. Keith lives in North Andover with his wife and 2 children. He is an active member of the community and volunteers all around the Merrimack Valley area. He is a member of Lawrence Leads program, which is a part of Lawrence Partnership, and is an active member of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. Give it up for Keith. Next we have Irene, co-founder of Mei Mei Dumplings, where we are today. Irene opened Mei Mei Street in 2012. And Mei Mei Restaurant in Boston in 2013 with her big brother and sister, Andy and May. Are they here right now? No.
We'll hear about that later.
She has spent the years since driving the industry forward in ethical sourcing and fair and transparent employment practices. As a Boston native, and Cornell University graduate, Irene has worked on farms, taught in prisons, and watched perhaps hundreds of hours of YouTube videos on food and cooking. I love that. She is an Eater Young Gun, Zagat 30 Under 30, Forbes 30 Under 30 winner, and 6-time James Beard Foundation Rising Star Chef semi-finalist. She has also recently received James Beard Foundation Leadership Award. Now Irene and her team are evolving Mei Mei into a packaged dumpling company offering virtual and in-person dumplings making classes in farmers market retail items. Irene serves on the board of Project Bread, the Hayes House, the Food Project, and Loving Spoonfuls. She recently served as the program manager for Commonwealth Kitchen's Restaurant Resiliency Initiative, putting her experience to work in supporting BIPOC restaurant owners in the city of Boston. Amazing. In 2021, Irene was a part of the inaugural cohort of the Visual Hands Fellowship, a program supporting BIPOC and female tech entrepreneurs in the early stages of building their businesses. She is building Prep Shift along with her business partner, Dylan Gully and Carla Tornano, to support restaurant owners and workers to improve training, culture, and retention, making restaurants work for everyone. She is the co-author of Double Awesome Chinese Food from Roost Books and Perfectly Good Food with from W.W. Norton. Moderating today's conversation is Amber Haskell, Director of Economic Inclusion at Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. In her role, Amber oversees the Pacesetters Supplier Diversity Initiative, a network of mid to large size corporate buyers and anchors institutions that are committed to increasing their spend with businesses of color in Massachusetts. In this role, she supports buyers diversifying their corporate spend, like I do myself at Liberty Mutual, while providing diverse businesses with insights and exposure to corporate buyers. Prior to her role, Amber worked in corporate philanthropy and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the financial services and software industries. She created partnerships between the company and their global communities in which they operate and increase employee engagement through the development of employee resource groups and diversity and inclusion councils. With that, I'll pass it over to Amber.
Let's hear it for Grace, everybody. This is Grace's first time doing public speaking. So before we get started, I once again have to thank Liberty Mutual for being our partner in this, Irene, to you and your team for hosting us. And I would just like to say I need to boost my resume because while Grace was reading, my mom gave me a look like, wow, Amber, come on now. I got some work to do. But with that, would love to start. We've heard your guys' bios. Irene, because you're closest, I'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your businesses, how they got started, and how they got to where we are today?
I am the youngest of 3 siblings, so I am the bossy baby sister. And in Mandarin, a little sister is called a Mei Mei. So it was our brother's idea to open a food truck. He wanted to transition from hospitality and fine dining to being on the street. And so his very opinionated Mei Meis said, we suppose we could come home and help you open a business. And that was 11 years ago. So Mei Mei Street Kitchen, our food truck, hit the road in 2012. We opened Mei Mei Restaurant in the Fenway neighborhood in 2013. Fast forward, many iterations and evolutions and false starts in our business. And we are now here in South Boston. We opened here in January, and our space is what we call a dumpling factory, cafe, and classroom. The emphasis in the business now is manufacturing dumplings. We make between 30 and 40,000 dumplings every single week. And those go to local farmers markets, to retail and specialty stores. We are always looking for more institutional buyers. And so we are just so excited to host you here in the space. And Prep Shift is my other hat. We support small food businesses that want to thrive sustainably. I made a lot of mistakes in my career opening this business, and I want today's entrepreneurs who are either just starting out or kind of figuring how to move forward, I want them to make new mistakes, or fun mistakes, than the ones that we made. And so Prep Shift is all about trying to make the restaurant industry work for everyone, not just operators, not just guests, but also workers and the broader ecosystem. So that's what we do here.
So first of all, thank you all for having me. Always exciting to get a chance to talk to folks and tell the story. So my name is Keith Chaney, just by way of introduction again. So I purchased City Sealcoating in 2017. And as the story goes, my family and I moved to North Andover from Roxbury. And everywhere we went, we saw the sign City Sealcoating at the end of folks' driveways. And so it became a bit of a running joke. Had no relationship with at the time with the owner. And as Amber mentioned, I had a graphics company. So we went through line striping, we did all the signage for the MGM Casino in Springfield and Oxonville, Maryland, but we also did truck leather. And so I happened to meet the owner of City Sealcoating, and he said, hey Keith, I've got a great opportunity for you. And so I was under the impression he wanted me to line the trucks into leather trucks. And so he said, no, I just had enough, and I'm looking to sell company. And I can tell you, I've never said the word seal coating before. I never said the word seal coating. But what was clear to me is that this man had lightning in the bottle. Because, as we mentioned, the signs were literally everywhere. And if you get the sign of a soccer game, of the 10 parents, 7 of them would know the name City Sealcoating. So it was clear to me that this person had built up enough energy and brand recognition that there was some room to go. So that was 2017, purchased the business. It was lucky for us at the time that I think he was just completely exasperated and looking to get out. So the numbers made sense. I wasn't looking because High Rise Graphics at the time was going well. I was looking to purchase another business. But it was it was difficult to say no now, especially since the price was what it was at. So it was 2017. Obviously, COVID hit a year or two after that. But as I was mentioning to Amber, we called our customers and wanted to find out where some of the pain points were. And so what we heard was that a lot of projects had been put off. But what was becoming clearer is that there was money in the system and everybody was at home and they wanted to do this project improvements, house project improvements. So the phone would ring probably 60 times a day, and we wound up doing like 800 projects a year. And so that sustained us along with some of the federal money that came through. As you had mentioned, we've grown not 300%, but now 700% over the last 6 years. Not necessarily because we are great at what we do, but because there's enough room in our industry that the other folks just suck. Right? And so they just don't do a very good job of communicating, and they don't do a very good job of delivering, nor do they offer solutions. And so that created space for us. It created space in the public sector where a lot of our competition couldn't work there anymore because they had messed up too many times. And so it created opportunity for us. And so as a result, we have moved our business to Lawrence and we hired out of the city, and a lot of our growth is because of the good folks that work at City. So once again, I'm excited to have the conversation. I learned so much by these type of interactions. And it's exciting to be here in the restaurant, which you guys have done so well, and it looks like it's amazingly exciting. So thank you for having me.
All right, you gave me the perfect segue about business growth. 700% growth, which is astronomical, especially when you think that 2020, COVID, the world shut down. Can you talk a little bit about what contributes to that business growth? You talked about, the industry kind of being ripe for you to come in and everybody else kind of sucking. So, what else contributes to growth besides just,
All right, let me retract sucking. There was, in all honesty, there was just some room for us because people weren't there was some room for us to grow. All right, fair to say. The reason why we grew is because we talked to our customers. We wanted to know, we coined the phrase, we talked about it a lot in the office. Let's be the aspirin to the headache, right? And so that just meant that our first couple of years is we went on a listening tour. What's not working well? On your past projects, what were some of the things that were successful? What were some of the things that the other companies had challenges with? Reporters in the room, right? I can see her scrolling. I just want to make sure that something doesn't make it into anything here. And so that was probably the biggest thing I think that helped for us, is that we had folks that worked there, that were good at what they do, and just created an environment in which our customers were clear is that we want you to utilize our years of experience. Let's have a solution-based conversation. Let's come up with a model in which we understood that we deal with a lot of property managers. So there's already a model in place that says, hey, look, you want to have some type of safety net around your large HVAC systems. So you have a preventative maintenance plan in place. And so we offered something that we thought was, at the time, it was a bit revolutionary that said, look, we're going to guarantee the condition of your asphalt as long as you operate in our preventative maintenance plan. And we'll spell out for you what year 1, 2, and 3 looks like. And if during that time, if if the asphalt breaks down, we'll come in and fix it for free. So to answer your question, Amber, I think our growth was spurred by a couple things. The hardworking folks in the company, that there was a room in this industry for a bit of a disruptive technology in a different approach, and just, to be an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you'll agree, sometimes you are a bit of an alchemist. You have to feel as though you're going to get water out of a rock. And even when I mentioned Amber, we had a woman that was in the office who, no matter what was happening, she'd always say, it's going to be okay. It's silly, and not as silly, but as simple as that was, it took somebody that was new to entrepreneurship and would have sleepless nights, and I'm 23, by the way, so it has worn on me. But that helped. And so it was the three things, that combination, that we had good people, that we offered solutions, and I had a pretty remarkable director of operations that just no matter what happens, everything's going to be all right. And so we're fortunate to have that news.
Irene, can you talk a little bit, because your growth, food truck to brick and mortar, to closing the brick and mortar and then creating where we are today, the dumpling factory. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I mean, what I really love that you said, Keith, is that you kind of have to be obsessed with your customer, with their experience, with what they need. And certainly, I think as chefs, we can get a little too obsessed with ourselves, our egos, what we want to create, what we want to see out in the world. But if the customers don't like it, it doesn't matter how good your ideas are. So we went through a process very early in COVID where we said, okay, people are at home, let's take this time to build our customer personas, to interview people, to understand, when do you come to Mei Mei, when do you go somewhere else, what are the things that you need? And that was what led us to take our packaged food to a farmer's market during COVID. We had one guest who managed the Lexington Farmers Market, and he basically came to our front door, he was wearing a mask, we were wearing masks, and he just said, would you ever consider coming to our farmer's market? Because we were doing takeout only. And I, again, in my ego, said, oh my God, that sounds terrible. I don't want to stand outside, and farmers markets are for startups. And my two business partners, who are not my siblings, by the way, said to me, I think it's COVID, we're all startups. And so, take your medicine. And we went to the Lexington Farmers Market, and we sold out 3 times. We had to send the van back to the restaurant to restock twice. And I had never been so happy to be wrong, because we saw that there was traction there, that people wanted to be outside, that they wanted to connect with someone who was selling them something, not just like Whole Foods doorstep delivery. And so that is why we are now at almost 40 farmers markets throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And that is how we've built up the kind of traction direct to consumer that we're now able to take to our grocery customers. We meet with Roche Brothers and we can say, hey, we've been to all of these markets. This is what people spend. This is how often they come. So we're obsessed with the customer. We're obsessed with their needs, with gathering data about them and finding new ways to connect with them. The other thing that really saved us during COVID was doing virtual dumpling classes. Again, if you had asked me, no one asked me, but if you had asked me, is there any money in virtual cooking classes? I would have just laughed all the way home. And because we were able to connect with institutional buyers, with corporate groups, we did almost 2/3 of our sales in 2021 in virtual dumpling classes and shipping dumpling ingredients all over the country. And so I think we just tried to offer something that, again, was the painkiller, and to provide a responsive version of a service that people might be able to get elsewhere, but they liked getting it from us. I think that was the key to kind of making it through.
I love that. The humility part is in all honesty of like, I didn't think this would work and it did, or in keeping like, I'm going to take the leap of faith to buy this business, and the numbers are right, the market is right, but I don't know about Sealcoating. I think that's incredible. Let's talk a little bit about contracts, which is kind of in supplier diversity, right? That's the big thing is getting contracts and knowing that contracts lead to business growth. Can you talk a little bit about one, how have corporate contracts kind of pushed your business forward, but also what are some of those pain points around corporate contracts? And Keith, I'm going to have you go second because I'm also going to prompt you with something else with that question.
Yeah, for us, we have really been successful in cases where we've found a champion within an institution who is willing to work with us, who is willing to be flexible, to hear us out, to maybe try something a little bit unorthodox, to take a chance on us. And so that's how we were successful with selling virtual classes, with getting our dumplings into TD Garden, for example, where they are now on the menu. And there have certainly been pain points. I think one of the challenges is that we have a premium product. It is not the cheapest dumpling you can buy. We know that. Our customers know that. And so we have to get everyone on board with why it costs what it costs. Another pain point that I was chatting with my business partner before she left, and she said, make sure you talk about payment terms. And I said, okay, great, I'm ready. Yes, exactly. And so, when you run a restaurant, in many cases, cases you pay upfront for your ingredients, or you might have 7 or 14 or 30-day terms to pay your vendors. And if you're working with a buyer who has 90-day terms, not a lot can happen in 90 days in a food business. And so we have had to ask buyers to, we've seen it, we know what can happen. But all this to say, a huge corporation might typically do 90-day payment terms with their vendors. Most small businesses just cannot sustain that because we are used to getting our payments in the bank the morning after we sold the food. And we are used to paying our own vendors right up front or within 7 or 14 days. And so, again, it takes a champion in the company or institution.
10 days.
Yeah, 10 days, baby. Oh, call me. And so that is something that, if we were just kind of getting boilerplate information or looking at an RFP, we might not even throw our hats in the ring because nobody has said, sure, let's have a conversation. Let's see if we can, give you some consideration. So finding that person or even looking at an RFP that says, do you need flexibility? Let's talk. And so I think those face-to-face, those human-to-human conversations are critical. Even though a contract is, a lot of writing on a page, there's still people who are crafting that relationship.
Keith, before you answer, I want to say that Keith has been a huge champion of Pacesetters and also been a great source of feedback for Pacesetters at a time where I think we needed to eat humble pie too and realize what we were doing wasn't what we thought it was doing. And one thing that Keith brought up was that the supplier diversity process is like Jell-O. Going from your initial contact to like actually getting meeting the person who's the actual decision maker to execute that contract. So can you talk a little bit about that process as well?
Yeah, and so a couple things. I feel her pain when she talks about the payment terms. One of the things, so I had a question if I can. You had talked about 2/3 of your business, right? Was through the dumplings and your she was shipping it out, or
Yep, virtual classes.
have you maintained that, or is that
We have
kind of shift?
Yeah, so
Sorry,
that was sort of an of the moment strategy, and virtual classes are now a steady but small portion.
So the shift that we made, and I'll answer the question, the shift we made is to overcome that payment gap. We do pay 600 drivers a year, which means it's instant cash, so that the folks will pay as soon as we're done, because cash flow obviously is an issue for any business. And so the first owner had eliminated driveways. Even that's the reason why I bought the company. And it did take long for us to realize that driveways not only gives us a lot of marketing and brand recognition. When we walked into Eastern Bank, they literally said, I was telling one of the folks here that when we met Quincy Miller the day I bought the company, within a matter of, Quincy Miller is the president of Eastern Bank. And with a matter of hours, he emailed the director of operations, and with a matter of weeks, we're on the ground with the contract. That doesn't happen a lot, but that was the type of relationship that in the good energy that Eastern Bank had. But the point was that we found that we needed to have something that went beyond just our corporate relationships, and that's where we found that having a diverse business plan allowed for us to overcome those gaps. To get to your question, Amber, it's kind of not a matter of if, but when. That's our thought, right? We know there's a 3-year runway typically for set of relationships, but it's easier for us because our commodity is parking lots, right? And everybody typically has a parking lot if you have employees, and so it's easier for us to make the argument that, hey, this is work that we can do. Aside from that, it's not. I was having a conversation with the EVP through the Harvard program, the EVP at Bank of America. And there's a risk reward, right? If you're asking the ask is if you need to take over your payment system or your HR system, there's a considerable amount of risk, and there's a considerable amount more due diligence that needs to happen before the company can get into the organization. For us, we're line striping or we're paving. The risk is relatively low, but we also feel like if we're successful in that space, it creates opportunities for other MBEs that are coming behind us. So we work and we see the larger picture as it relates to these opportunities. The Jell-O piece is just that. In any organization, leadership may have clear vision, but it's the Jell-O of the organization that may not, whether it's because they haven't followed up with it, or it's really not part of the culture, may not see it that way. And you're asking people to break or to change an existing relationship. And for the most part, these folks, you know, whether good or bad, they just want to, if it's a particular contract, to pay the parking lot. If it's an existing relationship and they know that they've had successful track record, why break and go to us? So we just have to stay diligent. As I mentioned before, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because we know that there's going to be an opportunity, and we're very clear about that, even if it's small. We're comfortable with developing the relationship with small, like a small little catch race that needs to be done, because we feel like in that space we can be successful enough in building a relationship. So that's what I meant when I talked about the Jello, but also back to the optimist piece. You just have to believe that eventually they're going to be your customer.
I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here and go off that networking piece, because networking is so important, and that patience. Liberty calls it persistent patience, of like, it's the, hey, just a reminder, we're still here. Can you talk about, I mean, we all started with networking. Networking is painful, let's be honest. How do you do that as an entrepreneur, where like, it's not Amber at the chamber who can stand there and be like, someone will come to me, but like, you really have to go out there and hustle and meet people and understand what their needs are. Irene, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, people love dumplings, so that makes it a little easier. Yeah. You know, at Mei Mei we say dumplings make the world go round, because every culture has its own dumpling, every cuisine has its own dumpling, and so it's kind of a great icebreaker to talk about such a beloved food format with people. But I would say that for me, networking is not that dissimilar from working in hospitality. Where you have to be able to read people, you have to kind of have a sense for what they need, what they're looking for, and how the two of you together can create a winning experience. So I think that for me, networking is so much less about talking about, you know, our work lives, and more just getting to know each other as people. And that's what has made it fun and sustainable for me. And so formal networking is not necessarily my bag, but anytime that I can just be myself and try to learn about other folks and then get some, you know, dumpling conversation and edgewise, that's how I motivate myself to go to a networking event. And I think that, you know, we all have different strengths in conversations. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, and a lot of us are in the middle. And so finding someone who's on that same wavelength as you, like, I love to stand in the corner and then find someone else who's standing in the corner. And so that is kind of one of my strategies for when I'm feeling like, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. But there's always someone who's having a similar experience as you in that moment, and so you just find them and you reel them in.
Sorry, I was thinking about a t-shirt. No, so you make a good point, right? Like there's a lot of, you mentioned this before, about just having champions that go along the way. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I've been very fortunate to have good people that have helped us, that have elevated our business, and I'm including the Boston Chamber and Jim Rooney in this conversation as well, that have made it a lot easier. Right? If you're going through the process and you lack the social capital that most of us do, product of a single parent, grew up, we were poor. And I didn't have relationships where I could simply call my uncle and say, hey, can you introduce me to the next person? It wasn't our reality. So I was mentioning earlier on, two other boards that were mentioned. I'm on the board of BECMA, and then I was on the board of ABL. And we were, during COVID, we were in a very small space, and we happened to have an event with maybe 12 people. And one of which was the mayor, and the other one which was the president of U.S. Development. And as a result of this small conversation, they emailed saying, hey, we have an opportunity for you. I didn't know what WS Development was from the candidate, but they have 1,000 parking lots or spaces in Linfield. They have one down here in Hingham, one down the street on Route 9, and they have a lot of commercial real estate. And I would have never been there if not given the opportunity to be in those spaces. So what motivates me in the networking environments is that I have a whole host of people that have been remarkable to me and for me. But I also have people that are looking, I know I don't operate in silo, and I have people that are watching to see, that are coming behind us, or even thinking about, I'm a big advocate of acquisitions. That's been my experience. I think it's something that we don't talk about or embrace enough. It's obvious that we talk about starting a business, but with a whole host of folks that are soon to be retiring, means it could be a lot of opportunities for people to purchase businesses. And so I think advocate of acquisition. And so suffice it to say, I have like really great people around me, and I understand that if we do well, that it makes it easier or it becomes something that is achievable by folks that are just watching. So makes it a little easier to get out of the corner and to talk to folks, because it's easy to transition from a conversation. And to your point, it's a conversation, and then you just blend in parking lots, right? Or questions. But that's the biggest thing, is just having a relationship and being real with people, and then eventually you can have the conversation about what it is that you're selling or offering.
If I can just add one thing, I think also some of the best relationships are formed outside of formal networking. So if it's, you're in line next to someone at the grocery store, and you start a conversation. I have two of the most amazing business partners in the entire world, and they're the reason that you'll never see me here, except when we're doing things like this, because I get to run my own other business, and we have an incredible team. And I met my first business partner because she cold emailed me. She was doing her MBA at Babson, and she was doing a project for school on food trucks. And I'd never heard of her before, but she cold emailed me. I said, yeah, I'd love to meet you. She came into the restaurant, she interviewed me, and I just thought, this girl's so smart and so on top of it. How do I get claws in her? And so I said, that's right, 5 years later. But I said, if you really want to know about the food truck experience, why don't you come join us and work a day of service on the food truck? And she said yes, and huge mistake, obviously, but she's part of our business now. We never could have done any of what we've done in the last couple of years. So I think a lot of folks are not interested in talking to students or people who are not the mayor, but you just never know. You never know if you open a door what's going to come through it, whether it's today or 10 years in the future. And so kind of letting everything be networking is something that I've really taken to heart through those lessons.
I'm going to ask one more formal question before we open it up, and Irene, you're my first person I'm going to. But I want to talk about, you guys both talked about kind of like the quick decision making of this is what's happened, where do we go next, particularly around COVID. Can you talk a little bit about like that decision making process, and when do you know it's time to pivot, or when do you know it's time to, I'll take the 10,000 foot view. I stole this question from another panel that I went to, and the moderator was talking to startups and said, when do you know it's time to, start your main job and make your side job your full time? And people talked about what was that pivotal moment. So when you're making these kind of big business decisions, what are those kind of pivotal moments when you know it's time?
I think for me there's two things, and maybe sometimes they're at odds, but number one is listening to your customer. If your customer is telling you exactly what they want from you, you better be listening. Number two for me, and this is personal and maybe a personality thing, but I have to follow where my energy leads me. If it's not fun, if I'm not excited about it, if it feels like work, that's not a recipe for success. So I think that during COVID, just the excitement of having some customer traction was like so intoxicating that it was like, okay, farmers markets all day, no problem. People are happy, they're giving us their money, like let's go. I also think that for me, it was really important to say, what's kind of activating me and like waking me up inside when we do this is that I haven't served a customer face to face in 6 months. And I am willing to get up and load the truck and do whatever because there's something inside me that is being rewarded by this experience. And if it's not fun, not only will I not do it, it's almost like I can't. And so I really have to listen to myself, and my team has also said, Irene, we have this opportunity, and if they can tell on my face that I'm not excited about it, they know it's not going to work. And so we have to really kind of follow our hearts to a certain extent, and we listen to the customer while we do that.
Yes. At the risk of sounding eerily familiar to everything that you just said, I think we just the human experience, I think we tend to overcomplicate things, right? Our instincts tell us one thing, and we, for whatever reason, ignore it. and we look for more empirical information, only to find out that our instincts were right. And so I agree that a lot of it is instinctual, but you can tend to operate in a silo, and it's important that you discuss with your customers. What I found was that I will test out my hypothesis. This is what I think is the right idea. And I have to, you had mentioned it too, to be humble enough to know whether or not that you're right or not, and be comfortable with failure. Right? The worst thing for us as an organization is for our employees or the folks that work there to be too tight. Right? Have to create an environment in which we can fail fast, but learn from it. Right? What did we not do well in? So when we are embarking on a shift or a change, when we talk about offering a service plan for our customers, is it something really that the market wants? Is it something that us putting energy and time into this, is it something that will bear fruits? And testing that. And so just having conversations with our customers and saying, here's what we're thinking. Is there value in that? And so it's no different. It's your instincts, your intuition, having a comfortable relationship with failure, but also listening to your customers. So I couldn't agree more or add too much more to what you always said.
All right, we are going to open it to audience questions, and I saw Irene's hand before we even opened. So do you want to take us off, Irene?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Irene, and I'm the founder of Monty Juices. We are a startup here in Boston, specializing in juices that are a good source of iron. So we're on a mission to help primarily women and children, but also men, increase their daily dose. That being said, we are here networking and working on my elevator pitch, like you guys can never do. How, from an entrepreneurial perspective, starting or acquiring, merging, how do you find time to do all of that? Because I find myself between meeting my regulatory requirements, meeting my kitchen requirements, even like when I rebranded, that was like a massive whirlwind. That was, it's just exhausting. So like, how do you make time to network when you are learning something new that is moving in a world in rapid speed?
Please.
So even though I acquired the business, it was very much like a startup for me because I had to learn everything. And in the beginning, I was on within Rocket.com to do the legal stuff, put together my S corp. I had to go to the Secretary of State's webpage to incorporate the business. So in the beginning, absolutely, you're doing every single thing. You're HR, you are legal, you are sales, you are operations. There's value in that because eventually you are going to move out of that space and find people that are better served to do that. There's an opportunity cost. It's better for you to focus on, typically, let me back up a bit. Part of the reason why we've been successful in our space is that there are people in Sealcoating that do a good job. The problem is that they are owner-operators, and they're tied up with all the back office stuff, which really they don't do very well, and it creates a little bit of an issue with their customers, or they're focused on just the skill set, right? So if the idea is that you want to scale the business, you're in your stage now where it's that yeoman type of work, right? There's a lot of storming, and you're figuring things out. There's value in it. But eventually, if the idea is to scale the business, is you're going to have to find people and invest in that. There's organizations that will help financing for you to bring in new people or get some type of fund so you can do that. And if the idea is to scale the business, is you're going to have to find people that can do that work and do it well, and then you can focus on, I personally believe the owner is best served doing this kind of stuff you're talking about, doing sales, because nobody's going to articulate or show the passion that you've shown. It's clear after 2 seconds of hearing you're passionate about it. You're going to do, my belief is you're going to do a better job articulating that and getting people on board than somebody else. So, and the headline, get to the point where you can no longer do it, invest in the future by financing, and spend time doing this here. But in the meantime, you have to do it. Yay!
Yeah, and what you're talking about is a distinction that we talk about with our prep shift clients about working in the business versus working on the business. And in food, it's very clear if you are working in the business or working on the business, right? You've got food in your hand, you're washing dishes, And then when you're working on the business, you're thinking big picture about growth. And maybe you're doing, critical operations things that are administrative, but you're still kind of at a little bit of a bird's eye view. I think that one of the things that really helped me, I think Jody Adams told me this. She said, you have to do the things that only you can do. And you find people to help you with everything else. And another piece of advice I got from a different chef was that the best way to train staff is not to teach them what you do, but to teach them how you think. You kind of have to do both, right? But there are always going to be unforeseen scenarios. Those of us who have worked in restaurants, we know these happen all the time. You cannot write a playbook that has every scenario in it. But if you are able to communicate the values, the vision, why you're here, why you're doing this, your team should be able to make the same decision you would have made if you were there.
Yes.
Exactly. And if you're just teaching them kind of by the book, here's what you do when this happens, here's what you do when this happens, they're not going to get to that level. So they really have to be on board, they have to be bought in about why you're doing this, and that has been how we've been able to grow as a business here. And I'm now at the point where I'm neither working in the business nor on the business. I'm working kind of alongside the business, and I have a team that serves in those other functions. And I feel that it's because I'm so passionate about what we do, and I'm so specific about what I want this company to be, that I was able to trap that MBA student after one interview, and everything's history from there. But can you run a business that is so exciting or so moving or just kind of gets to the core of people that they can't help but come work for you? That is, I think, how we've been able to make this work.
Were you working in the business in the beginning?
Yes, yeah.
That's the point. We were all in the business in the beginning, and you get to the point where you can no longer handle it from a capacity standpoint working in the business if the idea is to grow it, and then you're either working alongside it or on the business. But you're on the right track. Just because where you are right now and how long you've been doing it, I don't know, but that's the process. At least that's the process that I've experienced and I think you've experienced.
Any other questions? Not all at once, guys.
Oh, I have a question.
I'm going to jump to another prepared question I have, and then we'll come back. And that's, you both have really strong community backgrounds, and in giving back to the community. Keith, you were very purposeful about where you wanted your business to be, so that you were embedded in the community. Can you talk about how that community investment comes back to the business?
So a couple of things, as you mentioned. So we were in North Andover, I purchased the business. We moved to Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is north of here. Big immigrant population, mostly happen to be Dominican. City gets a bad rep, not because that's the reality, that's just the narrative. And a quick story: a woman that works for me is from Sudbury, had never really traveled outside of Sudbury. Interviewed me like captain, right? And I'm serious, right? When you get good people, you got it, right? And I got to the point where I needed somebody else to do operations. She did operations. And so there was a news article. No, I'm sorry, it was on the news. Crackhead jumped somebody on the bridge right down the street from the job, right? And so she called me. She goes, "Is this close to the job?" I was like, "No, that's nowhere near. Where we are is different, right?" And so 6 years later, she's asking for yucca, which obviously is yucca, right? And she's getting her nails done, her hair done. We had two other women that worked in the office that happened to work at a restaurant because they were there temporarily. And she would bring her daughter and all her friends from Sudbury to Lawrence to eat. And the daughter saying, "Are you living a double life? Because why do you know all this?" But the point is that she got to know Lawrence in a way in which she would have never, and in a way in which she immersed herself in the culture. And so that was great to see, right? But also, as I mentioned, I don't come from much, right? And I understand that there have been a lot of really great people that helped me along the way. And when you come from a place of abundance, there's nothing more than you want than to give it away when you get it, right? That's it. I'm happiest when I see. So there's a guy that worked for me. We hire also from the correctional facilities, right? Not really bad cases, but folks that have been on the same trajectory that I was on, but somebody said, "Well, if you have something to lose, it's easier to make a decision that you're going to do the right thing." When we're doing state jobs, these guys are bringing home $1,200 a week. So this guy had been locked up, and he was a little bit younger than I was. And, you know, he said to me, he broke down in tears and said, all I want is for my son to be proud of me. And he broke down in tears in my arms. And even thinking about it brings me to tears. But knowing that by just simply believing in people, there's one guy that I had his second year, had fallen back into substance abuse. And I told him I was proud of him this year, because he's starting to move beyond that. And he said to me, Keith, my dad's never told me that before. And that to me is the greatest gift, because I feel fortunate that I'm in a position to show somebody or tell somebody or reiterate to them that you matter and that what you've done and the progress you've made makes me proud. And so we spent a lot of times in the high school where there's a kid that worked for us as a senior. He gave a presentation in front of his class. Had a tough time never public speaking. And so being in that position, being in a city in which hopefully we are part of changing the narrative, to me is a remarkable gift that I've been given. So our community involvement is who we are. We love working in the Lord's community, and we love the fact that we can give back. So part of who we are, love it. If you get to have a chance, please call me, come to Lord's. Remarkable restaurants, remarkable people, and it'd be great to continue that conversation.
If you had something to say, I'd love to hear also.
You go first.
Okay.
I'll circle it back. Yeah.
Okay, so
And it better be good.
So I was wondering, when you get to that point when you're taking outside money and outside investors coming in, either they get board seats or you have to get their consent for certain things, how do you balance that with your initial vision and like where do you want to take the business when you have these conflicting interests?
Whose money? I'm sorry, I'll let you take this. I mean, Mei Mei is bootstrapped, crowdfunded,
Okay.
bank funded, and you know, VCs are not into food businesses for pretty good reasons, for the most part. So I'll let the
So, you know, we are in a capital-intense industry, right? But it sounds silly to say because at the beginning of the conversation, as we said, we grew 700%. It sounds silly to say the next thing, but we wanted to practice intelligent growth, which meant that we aren't going after every single project because there's risk associated with that. But cash flow, right, is always a challenge. And as you grow, you have to reinvest back into the business. So there have been times in which people have asked to purchase the business and or to offer capital, which I would have to relinquish a certain bit of ownership. I think to get to your question, the way that I jive outside influence is, as I mentioned before, is that so we've done the DEI program. We have a strategic advisor in your business for a year and a half. We have some really remarkable people. I'm always open to hear it. So I want to hear that because I have to be able to. We talked about like at certain points you have the instinct that this is the direction that you should head in. I want to hear. Doesn't mean necessarily I'm going to adopt every single suggestion. But I'm better suited when I have the benefit of hearing other folks. They're either based on their experience or based on their impression of, or you get to the point you talk about your pitch, right? Doing your elevator pitch. Even having the chance to say that out loud to somebody helps. So ipso facto, if I have an opportunity to have a bigger discussion with somebody else about the course of the business and hearing their feedback, it helps to either solidify or for me to re-examine. So those things for me are opened, are always wanted, but it hasn't come necessarily just yet with the financial, I don't want to say burden, but financial impacts that would come along with that. And that's part of the reason why we haven't accepted or relinquished ownership of the company because you're dealing with outside interests or a partner just stuff sometimes.
Just to follow up real quick, BEI, Business Equity Initiative, they're now part of Mills City Community Investment. They are, they support businesses of color with strategic growth and are also a CDFI and can help you with funding. MCCI.org if you are interested.
Couldn't tell you guys if you're I don't know if it's a million still in sales. So the threshold I think might have been reduced, but anybody who's interested in who has any inclination to do it, I would tell you it was absolutely worth it. It was long and it sucked.
There it is.
There it is, right? But it was worth it because I learned so much during the process. And yes, they offered, so that's how we got to the Pacesetters program. They opened up a lot of different relationships, and yes, at the end of it, there was a strategic plan in place, and they will help you to continue that. So if you are a business owner and you're looking to continue the growth of the company, this is absolutely amazing experience.
Amber, what was it again? Business Equity Initiative. So if you Google that, it will lead you there. You can also go to, they're now rebranded with Mill City Community Investment, mcci.org. They do require a size. You have to have a certain size to join.
Might be 500 now.
I think so. But if you're smaller than that, Pacesetters can help connect you to other programs that are more right size adjusted, whether that be the ICCC, which I apologize, I cannot tell you what that stands for right now. Thank you.
I think.
Jessica in the back,
Which is part of ICIC, which is
Which is-
Institute for Contemporary Intercity, yes.
or Interrise, which is a national organization that also does helps businesses of color and women-owned businesses grow their businesses. Also, if you are looking to grow by acquisition, there is an organization that Pacesetters is connected with that will help business owners of color learn how to acquire and help you with the funds to acquire. So if you're interested in that as well, please let me know and I'd be happy to connect you. I apologize, I'm blanking on the name right now. New Majority Capital. New Majority
What is?
Circle back
Yes,
to your question and also the question you
Yes.
posed prior, which was about kind of the role of community. One of the challenges in restaurants is that this is like a uniquely competitive business. You can order from anywhere. You can go out to eat anywhere. There are tons and tons of restaurants. And so anything we can do that gives us an edge or even makes people, remember that we exist to set us apart from all the other competition out there is super valuable. So that's part of why we do so much work with nonprofit organizations, and in our notes from the farmers markets, everybody types them up and sends them out to the team, and people are always coming up to the farmers market and saying, oh, I saw that you were at this thing, doing that thing, and can I buy some dumplings? And that is what it sometimes takes when there's a consumer at a farmer's market who's looking at so many different options, and then, the Mei Mei logo is just gonna stick out in their mind because they saw us in a program or something like that. We need every edge we can get. At the same time, it's not all about competition. Collaboration in our industry is really important too. So one example of kind of our commitment to that, to the abundance mindset, as you said, last May we did a campaign called Dumpling Disloyalty. We have a lot of loyal customers who come to Mei Mei, they're loyal, they love our dumplings, but what we actually wanted was for them to go and discover other dumpling companies, other AAPI-owned businesses, and then come back to us for a reward. So we said, you go eat at 8 other AAPI-owned businesses, you buy dumplings, you bring us your proof of dumpling purchase, and your next order of dumplings at Mei Mei is on us. Because it's not about us, it's about all of us, it's about our community, and of course, businesses in Chinatown have been hurting since COVID, and naturally, that brings people here to spend their money, even if they're getting a free order of dumplings. And so that's the kind of win-win that I think we try to create from our community. And just to bring it back to your question about funding, in the last 10 years, this business has crowdfunded almost $300,000 in different campaigns with different angles, to date. And I think it is because we stick in people's minds, people have a relationship with us, our business has an identity that people can hang on to. That's why we've been successful in doing that. And the last thing I'll say is that Visible Hands, which Grace mentioned, is a kind of venture-backed accelerator program, and that is where PrepShift grew out of. But I did not understand venture capital. I still don't. I was like, is this Squid Game? We're all just playing around, and the statistics about our success are terrible. Is that what we're doing here? And eventually with PrepShift, what we were able to do was plug into enough public funding and community funding that we are, a revenue-backed business. which like some of the VCs are like, what do you mean revenues? What do you mean customers? Like, yeah, we actually are making money and that's how we're supporting ourselves. So because of our relationships at the City of Boston, the City of Cambridge, MCCI, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we grew our revenue from nothing to over $300K in the first year of our operations. And all of that allows us to help restaurants at no cost to them. So it was by putting out those feelers and by meeting people and not just, trying to talk to VCs, that we were able to take that path that did feel very authentic to us and felt really aligned with what we wanted to do. Yes.
So you talked about it's not really about competition, right? Because those folks that have been there typically longer than we have. I talk about our competition just, but they have 10x relationships, right? So there's one company in particular that does just paving, and there's services that we provide such as Sealcoating. So this year alone, they did like maybe $750,000 in paving just for us. And then we attach our subcontractor 10% on it. And then we do like $200,000 in Sealcoating for them. So don't steer away if there are larger organizations, to your point. It's not always about the competition. It's about the relationships, because what you'll often find is that there's some symmetry between what they offer and what they don't offer. And oftentimes, obviously we're a smaller company. The company that we work for is $200 million in sales, right? We're nowhere near that. But they don't want to have to go out and do a catch basin. And a catch basin for us is great, because that's how we're built, that we're smaller. So there is value in seeing your competition, not less as competition to her point, but more as an opportunity to build a partnership. And whether you are selling drinks that contain iron in it, or smoothies that have iron in it, or whether it's paving or dumplings, looking for those relationships are going to get you to opportunities and 10x relationships in the way in which you would have to spend 15, 20 years in that same space. So this is value.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. Question, I didn't hear you speak directly towards it, but I think it's in everything you do, and marketing. Speak towards marketing and how that works. If you're understanding that if your logo is on every driveway, that's perfect for you. But for something that's starting from the ground up, how do you utilize marketing and other than just word of mouth in that relationship?
I guess for us, marketing relies so much on having a cohesive brand. You can have great marketing, but if your brand doesn't mean anything, if you have no identity as a business, that marketing effort is wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Mei Mei has always done our own marketing. Sometimes we bring in contractors or consultants to help us, but for the most part, everything lives in-house. And I think for our customers, marketing is all about storytelling. It's not about necessarily like value for money. It's about the engagement with the stories and the people who are here. When we first started out, the most important thing was letting people know where the food truck was going to be, because we didn't have a restaurant that we could invite people to. And so we got really good at sending out a tweet every single day. I think consistency is really important, and a lot of times I think in small businesses, marketing kind of falls by the wayside until you're like, oh shit, it's Christmas or what have you, and then you're like, okay, let's go. But to me, marketing is about those like daily deposits and building that muscle and keeping the storytelling consistent over time. And I know it's really hard because when you're starting a business, you're so engrossed in the things you have your hands on that you might not be thinking about like, what are my values, what's my mission, what's my vision. But returning to those things regularly, I think, is critical to make sure that all of the marketing aligns with what the brand actually is.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So when I mentioned the driveway and the signage piece, it's organic, right? And what we hear a lot is we see your signs everywhere, or we see your trucks everywhere. And so that's been our marketing, but there's a little bit of faith and investment that has to the banner, right? That and capital that has to go into the decision that's required in order to spend some revenue to get marketing, right? Because you mentioned you're in the business, your hands are on things. It's something that it's value add. You don't see the value of it right away. So it requires some faith. What I found out though is when we got to the point we were going to do SEO, we got this thing from Google that branded us as a black business. It was a sticker that they sent us. didn't know what it was for, but this is a point for those of you who have to go out in faith and register your business with the state or the city as an MBE or WE or BBE. What I later found out, I believe this is true, I'm not exactly sure, was that Google had made an effort to promote certain diverse businesses through their SEO. Are you nodding in agreement?
Yes, in
Okay.
agreement.
All right, so there you go. And so, because what was happening is anecdotally, we was asked, well, how did you find our jobs? And they would say through Google, and we weren't doing SEO at the time, marketing at the time. So it was weird for us because years prior, it was the introduction was because you worked on something and we saw your signs. So when we got to the point, right before we purchased some SEO, we found out that Google had done some pretty remarkable things behind the scenes. And so, really long way of saying is that if there's a certain amount of faith, and there's a certain amount of investment that has to go into above and beyond the stuff that keeps the lights on. And so sometimes it's a difficult decision.
I'm gonna use that as a plug that if you are not registered as a diverse business, please get registered as a diverse business. It is free through the Supplier Diversity Office at the state. It is free through the city of Boston, and there is reciprocity between the two of them. So if you're registered with one, it's like one extra sheet of paper to get registered with the other. It makes a huge difference for corporate buyers,
It does.
and it lets them count spending money with you towards their supplier diversity goals. I'm looking at Encore in the back, who has federal targets or targets with diverse spend and local spend. So it allows you to count towards Encore spend, and then on top of that, they're willing to work with you a little bit extra because they know that you're a diverse business. So please, and if you need help with that, please come see me. I'd be happy to connect you with the SDO or the
It's
Center,
easy.
or the
It's
Center
not
for
that
Women, Center for Women Enterprise,
No.
New England Minority Supply Development Council.
You're tackling the hard ones.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, it's not hard to do, guys, it's really not. And it's a passive document, it's not necessarily going to get you business, but there has been times in which people have called and there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars that have happened because we resided on the City of Boston's supplier diversity site. So it's easy to do, it's actually pretty informative, and it's worth the effort.
I want to thank you guys all for coming to this amazing conversation. Give it up for our sponsors. And I'd like to thank Liberty Mutual again for being such an awesome partner and sponsoring this event tonight. There's still more food. Please continue networking, and we hope to see you, Keisha can keep me honest, December 7th, from 3 to 4 p.m. We are having a virtual event with the Boston Planning and Development Agency called Doing Business, where they're going to talk about their procurement process. So if you're interested, bostonchamber.com, go to our events page, and it should live there. Thank you guys all for coming today. Thank you.